From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Please join me in welcoming Brian Lees.
Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out this afternoon. It is afternoon. Very nice to sort of meet you all. The whole bat thing. People often ask, why bats? Are you absolutely bat crazy? And people tend to assume that our house has walls painted black, that we have stalactites and stalagmites made out of paper mache in the dining room. The whole thing was actually kind of an accident. And before I read Bats in the Band, I thought I would just talk about why bats, because that is the question that I get the most. It was an accident. My favorite animal is not a bat. My favorite animal is the armadillo, and I have not yet done an armadillo book. The whole bat thing happened when my wife's and my daughter was in second grade. And one day we were trying to get her ready for the school bus. And it was one of those really slow mornings. You shout upstairs, you have your shoes on, your teeth brushed? No. Okay, well, we need you to get that going because the bus is going to be here in just a few minutes, okay? All right. Do you have your shoes on? Teeth brushed? No. And so we went upstairs to help her along, and she dragged us into the guest room in our house. It was a very, very cold December morning. And she pointed at the window. And I'm going to pull this around because I want to do a quick sketch of what was on the window. It was frost. It was ice. And it was 4 bumps, kind of like this. And I'm going to use, you should never, ever, ever break crayons. And I just did. But I'm going to fill in the inside like that. So you can imagine the frost on the window pane. And our daughter pointed at that shape and said, look, it's a bat playing in the ocean. Actually, her words were specifically, and this is a second grader, look, it's a bat in sea foam. And we thought, that's really cool. Now get your shoes on. We got her on the school bus, and I'm really glad we did, because if I had had to drive her to school that morning, I never would have taken the next step, which you always have to do if you're an author or an illustrator, and is not just simply see something, but see something and realize that there is a story there. And if that has not already been published, then it's yours. And I had never read a book about bats going to the beach, and I thought maybe I should do that. And we live about 5 miles away from the ocean in Massachusetts. And this is the title page of Bats at the Beach. I don't know if you now recognize the shape, because it's the ice in the window, and the book is dedicated to my daughter. Well, the whole bat thing sort of took off. I realized I really enjoyed spending time in their upside-down nighttime world, and that doing the books about the bats were a way of me reflecting on things that I love. Libraries. I visit a lot of schools around the country, and it kills me when I meet people, especially boys, who say, I don't read. You don't read? That's like saying you don't like color. Without reading, I don't know what my life would be, because to me, reading was the place where I traveled through time all over the world through one of these things. This is the doorway. Everybody wants a time machine. This is that thing. So, I thought with my bats would probably love to read, so Bats at the Library came around. Bats at the Ballgame? Only a bad joke. Baseball bats. And sometimes a bad pun won't leave you alone, so I did Bats at the Ballgame. And I really wasn't going to ever do another bat book. I have lots and lots of other things that I want to do, but I'm also a frustrated musician. I have lots of instruments at home. My wife will attest to the fact that they do not get played well. And so I thought to myself, with those really big ears, bats would be consummate musicians. They would love listening to music, but they'd also love playing it. And so Bats in the Band came to be. So I am going to read from this enormous book, and I want to make sure that people can see it. I also brought in a couple of the original paintings. I do these all the old-fashioned way. Whoops, I knew I was going to tangle myself up in that thing. Author dies in freak chord accident. So anyway, I figured I'd bring this big book to show you. And this book has only been out since the beginning of August. So if I mess up on the words, it's because I haven't learned this version yet. When you write a story, you write it many, many times. And so for the first couple of months that I'm reading a book, I actually have to read from the pages, even though I wrote it. Now, if you've seen the other Bat books, you may have noticed that there is one little bat wearing a pair of bright yellow floaties. He's in all the books. He's actually kind of become the silent main character of them. And to me, he represents the young one in all of us experiencing things for the first time. The floaties don't make a lot of sense at a baseball game, but anybody who's ever seen a little girl wearing a grubby princess dress in the grocery store knows what's going on. She loves it. And she bugs Mom and Dad, please let me wear the princess dress. And finally, worn down, they say, okay, you can. Oh, I wish I could fix that tear in the hem. Oh, I wish I could have washed it first, but there she is, a princess in the canned good aisle. So the little bat with the yellow floaties wears his floaties wherever he goes because he simply adores them. So Bat's in the band. Yeah, we had this big book made up because we actually had a concert in the town where I live, Duxbury, Massachusetts. The South Shore Conservatory wanted to have a sort of Peter and the Wolf style concert where I'd read part of the book and then different music groups would get up and play. I knew that large groups would not be able to see if I held this tiny little book and read from it. So I have this enormous thing, which could wound somebody if it fell over. So Bat's in the band. If this were a regular book, I would turn it upside down. Ignore this. This is all the legal stuff. You don't need to pay any attention to it. But here, the little bat with the yellow floaties is hibernating. He's wrapped in his mom's wings, and they're sleeping through the icy winter. They're actually upside down. I would flip the book upside down. They're hanging from the attic, and this is the vent that lets them get in and out of their house. So the story begins. In hibernation, we rest asleep through icy months of storm, still, huddled together and waiting for weather to warm. But as the wicked winter thaws, we stretch our wings and shake our claws. Hunger drives us to the air. We've got to eat, no time to spare. We sing for our supper in brightening moods. Swooping and diving, we're finding our food. There isn't a menu. We play it by ear, chirping and chasing the echoes we hear. Now, who of the young people among us can tell me the science word for how bats find their food? Yes? Echolocation, exactly, thank you. There is an expert in every group. Echolocation, so I figured my bats, after they are hibernating, would be hungry for food, but each of us senses that something's not right. And then when a bugle blast shatters the night, that one lonely note tells us just what is wrong. We've been hungry for sound. We've been silent too long. So there's a bat carrying an electric guitar. There's the little bat with the yellow floaties being carried by his mom, about to engulf this wonderful-looking moth. And it takes two bats to carry a cello. Even a small cello, I figure it's a two-bat cello right there. Exactly, yeah, that's how they're getting their food. And every last one of us knows where to go, a summertime theater after a show. We're chasing each other. Come on, look alive. Nobody wants to be last to arrive. And there's the little bat again hanging from Mom's fur. But as we approach it, there aren't any lights. We can't be mistaken. We know it's tonight. We circle above, then a window's thrown wide. It lights up the lawn, and it leads us inside. And this is actually a real-life theater. All of my bat books are placed in a real place up in Massachusetts. This is the country's oldest continuously running barn summer stock theater. People like Paul Newman and Veronica Lake played in this theater. Right now it's kind of messed up, but it's being renovated, which is kind of cool. This time next year, real people are going to be performing in this place again. We swoop through the window, ignoring the bats, offering t-shirts, posters, and hats. A musical feast awaits us within. Why would we wait? We can't, or why would we stop? We can't wait to begin. And so here the vendor, very bored-looking vendor, is selling t-shirts. This one, if anybody's ever taken piano lessons, every good bat does fine. And then this one here says, it ain't over till the bat lady sings. And here a bat is carrying a peanut. We're going to see that peanut in a couple of pages. The space we fly into is warm and inviting. We set up the stages and we fiddle with lighting. So here the conductor is getting caught in a beam of light. Light, for the younger people here, does not hurt bats. In schools, when I've read my bat books, everybody says as soon as there's light in one of the books, but the bat's going to get hurt. Because they think, a lot of kids think that if you shine a flashlight on a bat, blows up. And of course, that's not real. This conductor bat has just gotten caught in the beam of light, and he's startled. He's not hurt. Some bats have instruments perfect in size. Others, without them, will just improvise. Behind the stage curtain, they're getting in tunes, making up things out of straws or of spoons. I also like hiding lots of really bad jokes for grown-ups who may have to read a book 12 or 14 times. When my daughter was little, there were the books that we'd read once and then, stoop, down behind the sofa. I don't know what happened to it. Let's choose another book tonight. You know, I like if somebody's reading a book one of my books more than once, that the grown-up doesn't groan at the idea. So here's a bad joke. Be very literal. What is this bat playing? A keyboard. Other bat instruments came from afar, like curly horns, bagpipes, or dreamy sitar. And then, when a bugle blast echoes once more, we stop what we're doing and flock to the floor. The conductor approaches. He lifts his baton. We all take a breath, and the concert is on. First is going to be choral music. We sing together as one voice. It seems the very walls rejoice. All together, rafters ringing. It's as though our souls are singing. And the little bat is down here looking a little bit confused because he doesn't know what's coming next. And I'm afraid to say what's coming next is a string quartet. Then violins, viola, cello change the mood to sweet and mellow. If you haven't seen a bat quartet, you really ain't seen nothing yet. So they're actually swinging back and forth, and they have to sort of fend themselves off of each other with their feet, I figure, as they're swinging back. The one-bat band plays many things at once with feet and breath and wings. And though we think this bat's inspired, watching leaves us feeling tired. So I think it would be exhausting to play so many instruments at once. Next up, there's a country song. Some lonesome bat done someone wrong. He's gone and broken someone's heart. Now everything has come apart. And the song is so sad that the bats who are watching are all weeping. In a corner, tucked away and far from where the others play, there's something for the younger set who can't sit through a concert yet. And most of the children's programs that I've been to, there's always somebody, even if it's a really friendly presenter, who runs away screaming for mom and dad. So that represented by that little bat there. Over there, a singer cries of lonely days and empty skies. Her feelings fill the room with blue until we find we're crying too. It's hard to figure. Eyes get wetter. So how is it that we feel better? How many of you have ever been feeling really sad and you listened to music and it made you feel happier? That's one of the magical things about music. It plays with our emotions. It can make us feel sad at times, and it can make us feel joyful. So this is my Billie Holiday bat. She's got a gardenia behind her ear, and they've made a marimba out of golf scoring pencils. Now on the main stage, there's a hum of air guitar and blazing drums. Hearts are pumping, drums are thumping, everything that's loose is jumping. Can others hear us? We don't care. Let our spirits fill the air. And these are all sort of representations of famous rock musicians from like the 70s or 60s. I have a sort of a Jerry Garcia bat here who's missing one of his claws. Who can tell me which rock singer plays with scarves attached to his mic stand? Anybody? Aerosmith. That's Steven Tyler. I grew up in Princeton, New Jersey, so we've got to have Bruce Springsteen and Clarence Clemons. And then over here, representations of The Who. I figure, with the moon on the drum, that's probably Keith Moon. Actually, it should be Keith's son, shouldn't it? Oh, well. Everybody joins the beat. clapping wings and stomping feet. We bounce, we hop, we twirl, we groove. The music makes our bodies move. And here the little bat has just been handed a drum mallet, and the conductor's telling him what he needs to do as his part of the concert. But the bats are trying all kinds of different dancing, including a disco bat, country line bats. And if you turn the book upside down, there's some slow dancing and then some swing dancing over here. But daylight through the window says it's time for us to go, so every bat who's willing crowds the stage to end our show. The music soars, finales here, the ending of the song. It builds and builds, now here it comes, it's going, going. What's next? Gong, as the little bat hits the gong with the mallet. Then the shimmering vibrations dwindle down and fade away, and a silence fills our ears, as loud as anything we played. A weary cheer. There's nothing more, but no one wants to leave. Our music was a gift we gave and one that we received. So the conductor here is literally handing the baton on to the new generation, sharing music with the younger bats as they head to the window. Heading for home, we hum or we sing and discover there's music in everything. The roar of a car or the bark of a pup, the sound of the rest of the world waking up. The bats are flying home with their instruments, and some of them are flying across these electric wires here. If you play that on a piano, it's Mozart. Da 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 da. Anyway, I also have a fiddler on the roof bat down here. But our night is over. The summons of sleep is pulling us downward, drowsy and deep. And as we nod off, the last thing we hear is the sound of our hearts beating time in our ears. How many people here have ever hung upside down by your knees so long that you could actually hear your heart in your ears? I remember that from childhood. And though we stay silent all through the day, up in the rafters and sleeping, we sway. It's not our intention, but you understand, we're dreaming of being the bats in the band. Little bat's fast asleep, wrapped in his mom's music, dreaming about music. So that's the book. I thought what I would do next is I do have one of my sketchbooks, and I know it's a little bit hard to see some of this stuff. I also want to be very careful about timing here, brevity being the soul of wit and all. But my stories start off as sketches in a sketchbook. And I can show you some of the things from Bats in the Band. This is, well, actually, here's an alligator who is not behaving at a movie theater and is laughing way too loud. That's not in the book, obviously. Here's the One Bat Band when I first drew it. And I'll probably have this and one of my originals with me at the signing table if people want to see stuff up close. But it all starts with a blue pencil sketch. Here is a very angry pigeon, a Spinifex pigeon with a sword. He's glaring at us, and all it says up here is, "Nobody laughed at Philippe twice." And I'm not sure, I think he's got a story, but that's for later. Well, here's a prairie dog overdressed for snow. His mom made him get in a whole outfit. So the thing is, a sketchbook for me is a place where there's not a lot of judgment. It's a place where you just put things down on paper. And sometimes they turn into a story, sometimes they don't. My sketches turn into finished paintings. And I'm going to show you a couple of those. This is the bats dancing. So this is the original for that. And there's the country music bats. I do these all in acrylic paints. I do the old-fashioned method of doing an underpainting in brownish, greenish tones at times, and then I bring the colors up on top of it. Because these things are so detailed, they can take anywhere from 2 to 9 days just to color in the finished painting. Sometimes I wish I had a really quick, immediate, sketchy kind of style, but the kind of books that I loved when I was growing up were the books that had lots of details. Richard Scarry's best word book ever. I still can look at those pages for hours. The apple falling out of the backpack of the bear climbing the mountain. There's one page where there's a cutaway in the street, and I think a frog is getting onto a subway. And then there's a shop that sells Halloween costumes. And there's also a book editor, up in the corner. That was one of my favorite pictures as a kid. That may have suggested something to me. Now, I visit schools all over the country. I think it's really, really important for young people to see how grown-ups drew when they were kids. Because when I was growing up, I believed in talent. I thought you had to be born brilliant at things, and I didn't realize process. Everybody knows practice makes? No, it doesn't. In our family, we say practice makes better, which I think is much more human. It's more humane. It gives you permission to get better. Once you're perfect, you're done. You might as well stop, because there's no improving after that. Well, this is how I drew in second grade. Not very promising. I will read it to you because it's a very short story, and it goes like this. Onex upon a time, and I meant to say once upon a time, but in second grade my spelling was awful. Onex upon a time, a fox went back to his cave, and this lumpy thing is supposed to be a red fox. And then progression, and he looked out of his cave. So that's the whole thing. Now, thank you. This is the One-Bat Band from the book. And the reason that I'm showing them side by side is it's really important to remember they're both done by the same person. I asked a group last school year, well, what's the difference between the two of these? And the child raised a hand and said, great age. Ow! It's like, ooh, somebody can take that knife out of my back? Anyway, the whole thing is about practice makes better in my book. Now, I think I've got 5 minutes left. Anybody have any questions at this point, either about this book or the Bat books? Or I can't really talk anything about global economics, but yes?
Have you ever thought...
Oh, okay, well...
Have you ever thought about animating your book?
I've gotten a couple of queries from producers about doing movie versions of these. I'm ambivalent. Sometimes a book should stay a book. Because the thing is, when you have a book, everybody reads the book and brings his or her own life to it. We all have our own personal version of a book. When it becomes a movie, it becomes the committee's version of the book, and it kills pictures in the head of anybody else who's going to do it. So I do have a daughter in college, but the thing is that I would generally, I'd love to have people just like the book. You had a question. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. I am going to be signing, I don't know what the line situation is like out there, but I am going to be signing books afterwards. Thank you. I hope you enjoy them. Just take it out of the library if the line's bad. Well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. That's when the sponsor arrow goes. Yes. Yes.
I think you should make one that's like bats go camping.
Well, I love camping. I grew up camping. But the bats who kind of live in the country were going camping. I think they'd have to go camping in the city, wouldn't you? And then they'd have all kinds of weird upside-down sort of city experiences. I will never say never about things like that. I do have lots of other things I want to do, but I think they would love going camping. Yes?
I know it's like the frost or something.
Yeah.
Like that reminded you of like a book to write.
Yeah.
Like what really kicked you into the writing books?
Well, okay, great question. Writing books. An author visit to my school when I was in 5th grade. It never dawned on me that ordinary people that you could meet on the street, in the grocery store, actually could write and publish books. I, again, believed in talent. I thought it was something that talented people far away did and sent books down to us mere mortals. I mean, honestly, I'd say we didn't have authors and illustrators in my family's circle. So this author coming to my school was the first moment. He looked like somebody that you just would see anywhere. And he wrote and illustrated, and I thought, that's what I want to do. But then I thought, yeah, but I stink at drawing. So I actually went to college to become a clinical psychologist. And while I was there, I saw other students who were daring to do things with their lives. 2 years ago, I did the summer reading program illustrations, the Dream Big Read theme. Kids, dream big. Do not make tiny little dreams. Go for amazing things and chase them, learn them. Because that's what ultimately happened for me. It was a long, long time to actually be able to do this. But I get to do what I wanted to do when I was 10. And to me, that is one of the most amazing blessings you can have in your life. I love being able to write and illustrate stories and then share them. Any other questions? Yes?
What else do you want to do?
What else do I want to do? One of the things I'm interested in doing is setting big problems for myself. I have gone through 3 distinct style changes. I started off with watercolor, scratchboard, didn't like it. Watercolor, didn't really like it. I love the acrylics, but there are so many other things you can also do. So to me, it's about growth and experimenting, not getting used to going into the same thing, just doing the same thing over and over again. That's where the art comes into the illustration, which is experimenting. So, I would love to do wordless books. I would love to do a couple of novels. I have some things. It's about just sitting down and making stuff, which is what I loved on rainy Sundays as a kid. Just make something. Yes?
Do you have any advice for kids who are interested in pursuing a career?
Yes. A couple of things. One, I would say, do not be professional too soon. Everything that you do well needs to come from joy, not from beating skill into a person. You can teach somebody how to draw a cube with a ruler when they're 5 years old. They're not really going to understand it, and they're not going to love it. They're going to feel like, I can't do this well. I couldn't draw a shadow that looked like a shadow till I was probably in 10th grade, but I loved drawing. So encouraging the love of doing it is important, and also just draw and write. Write little scenes. Don't try to write a novel. Write a single scene, because a scene is a brick, and a whole building is made of little bricks. And a story, a big book, is made up of little scenes all put together. So if you can master a scene, you can master another, and learn how to tie them together. But I think that's the important thing, joy and just do stuff. I think am I over time? Okay, well, one last question here. Yes?
It's not a very important one, but I thought I'd say it anyway because I might not have to get back to it later.
Yeah.
Why, when you sketch in your sketchbook, why do you use a blue pencil?
A terrific question. That is a great question. I use blue pencil because it's my favorite color. Now, and everybody would assume that it's some important art reason. I don't know how many people here have ever sat down with a blank piece of paper and you've been terrified by it, and you're worried that it's going to be the best drawing or not, the worst drawing you ever did. I draw with blue because it makes me feel like I'm playing and not working. So I switch over later to gray pencil, but I always start with blue because it's fun. Keep the joy in it. I am over time at this point. Thank you, everybody, for coming out this afternoon. And thank you very much for the signing.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.